All right, that brings us directly to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Let's go ahead and jump into the presentation. Welcome to today's GDIP ICL Lunch and Learn, specifically on transcripts and English Language Proficiency Test Scores, or ELPT scores for short. My name is Don Ames. I'll be the host for today's session, but before we begin, I want to begin with our land acknowledgement. So Queen's University is physically situated on traditional unceded Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee territory. We do this land acknowledgement at the beginning of all of our sessions because it is important to acknowledge the Indigenous population and, of course, the atrocities that have been committed against them. Some of these atrocities are still coming to light to this day. It's important to support the Indigenous population, to provide reconciliation, acknowledgement, and to do what can be done to right the wrongs of the past. Queen's is dedicated to indigeneity, both on campus and virtually, and that's why we conduct this land acknowledgement at the beginning of all of our sessions, as well as support indigeneity at Queen's, our Indigenous students who self-identify, and really provide resources to groups like the Office of Indigenous Initiatives and the Four Directions Indigenous Student Center. Those are groups that are doing fantastic work. For any individual who wants to learn more, I encourage you to review the websites for those organizations and educate yourself about the lands that you currently occupy and determine what the traditional holders are of those lands. So thank you very much. So as I've mentioned, my name is Don Ames. I'm the manager of admissions and recruitment for the GDIP ICL program. I've hosted several of these webinars in preparation for the September 2024 application cycle for the Graduate Diploma in Immigration and Citizenship Law program, or GDIP ICL program for short. This session is going to be a little bit different. We have a very specific agenda today. While we're going to go through our standard program overview, we're only going to be focusing on two very specific admission criteria: the requirement for transcripts and for English language proficiency test scores. The reason why we wanted to narrow in on our admission criteria is because they're pretty expansive, and we provide a lot of details within our sessions on all of our admission criteria, but it does limit the amount of time that we have for questions at the end. And we just really want to focus in on a couple items. And we split this actually into two different webinar series. I'm going to be doing another webinar tomorrow at the same time on the references component as well as the access pathway. If you need any information about those, definitely do sign up for those sessions. But for today's webinar, we're going to go through the program overview, talk specifically about transcripts, then about ELPTs, and then we're going to open up the Q&A. All right, let's go ahead and start off with our program overview. So to provide a few highlights of the GDIP ICL program, so our program is the only English language pathway to become a licensed Canadian immigration consultant, or RCIC for short. The College of Immigration and Citizenship Consultants, the CICC for short, they put out the request for proposals to offer the English language and the French language educational pathway for the RCIC profession, and Queen's was the successful recipient of the proposal for the English language pathway. This program was designed to be held online completely. We are a 100% online program. And it was designed to prepare students for the CICC's mandatory entry to practice exam. So that is the exam that needs to be taken in order to become an RCIC. Our education follows the essential competencies that the CICC puts out for their RCICs, and the EPE itself really does prepare individuals to understand what is a requirement of the RCIC and to test them on the education that they learn within our program and the French language program, which is offered by the Université de Montréal. So we are a pretty in-depth program, again, completely online. We provide courses that really deliver a deep understanding of Canadian immigration and citizenship law, policy and procedures. It translates to a wide range of professional roles inside the immigration ecosystem, as we like to say. So it's not just for those who are interested in becoming RCICs. typically is the number one pathway that we do see interested individuals taking when it comes to our program. But we also see a lot of individuals who are taking this course to leverage this knowledge within government. They want to get into government work, NGOs, private corporations, any organization that utilizes an international focus on recruitment. So if you need employees to fill spaces and you can't find them domestically, utilizing the knowledge that you learn in this program is certainly going to help with that process. Also, HR professionals. Lots of HR professionals are interested in our program, and it definitely does support any of those kind of inner working positions where recruitment and that international focus is going to be necessary. Our program is also guided by a national advisory committee. It's comprised of current RCICs, current lawyers, community experts in the sector. It's a really great resource for us when it comes to developing and establishing our program, improving things as we move forward. And we're really proud of the work that we do within this program in partnership with CICC and with our National Advisory Committee. So our program experience document. So this can be downloaded directly from our website, and I'm going to provide some links for you at the end of this session. But basically what we want to ensure is just what the program journey is going to look like for you and for all students. So all students are required to complete 9 courses in the program, again, delivered completely online. And for full-time students, you can complete this program in just under 12 months. So it's a pretty quick turnaround. We go through fall and winter intakes for our admissions, and then the studies take place actually fall, winter, and summer. So you will be working through the summer. So it's a year-round program, and full-time students can complete it fairly quickly. Part-time students, and I'll have a slide about the part-time study plan. They complete the program in 24 months. There's also a 36-month option, but it's less popular. So we have immersive and interactive online learning. You can complete this program wherever you are located, provided that you can attend the tutorials in the Eastern Standard Time Zone. We have course instructors who are industry experts, current lawyers, RCICs, people who understand and know the immigration landscape within Canada. Literally, people who have written the textbooks that we're teaching in the program are teaching within our individual courses. One of the things I really stress when it comes to understanding the program is that you have to treat this course like a full-time job. It is an immersive experience. It is an intensive experience, and it is a lot of information for an individual to really focus in on. September intakes are a little bit different than our most recent intake for January, whereas we accept both part-time and full-time applications for admission consideration. January intakes only admit full-time students. So if you need to consider a part-time study plan because you need to lighten the load slightly, this is the intake for you that's coming up this January, when we open the application on January 15th for September 2024. So we encourage everybody, part-time or full-time, to treat this course like a full-time job. It's a lot of requirements. The first course specifically, the 6-week intensive foundations course, ICL 810, it's a 12-week course condensed down into 6 weeks. So it takes a lot of time. The commitments are considerable, but the program's designed to be that way. It prepares you for the world of becoming an immigration consultant. So we really put students to the test, but students really do find it very rewarding to complete the program at the end of the day. The final bubble there at the top just emphasizes the importance of self-directed learning opportunities. Much of this program is done asynchronously. There are live tutorials that you attend, but the rest of it is done on your own time. So it's really important to put an emphasis on time management, knowing how you operate in an online program, also in a self-regulated program. Making sure you meet your own deadlines and the deadlines of the program, and that you're establishing those for yourself. The bottom sequence there just talks about the learning methods. So like I've mentioned already, there are live tutorials on a weekly basis, typically 2 hours in length, though our bookend courses, ICL 810 and 890, have 3 hours of tutorials per week. There is a great review of case studies, simulations, lots of sort of skill-based trainings. There's a lot of readings, lots of multimedia interactions. You do things via our OnQ online platform. And there's lots of great collaboration with your fellow students and the instructors in the program. So really, you're going to be getting the nuts and bolts of immigration and citizenship law in Canada, and it really does prepare students for that EPE. Here's an example of our courses and just the weekly breakdowns for those. So like I said, it's going to be intensive, but extremely rewarding at the end, with ICL 810 being that foundations course that's going to be the prerequisite for all other courses in the program. The final course there, I like to highlight ICL 890, Immigration Practice Management. That's going to be a course that has those 3 hours of tutorials, but it's also going to help you understand maybe even developing your own immigration consultancy practice. So lots of great information there in those courses, lots of really interesting materials. I've sat in on a couple of these tutorials, super interesting. And if you're passionate about immigration and citizenship, of which you're here today to learn more about it, it's going to be a great course for you. I also encourage people to go to the CICC website to take a look at the essential competencies, just to understand what the CICC expects of incoming RCICs. Great information on their website. Go ahead and take a look. I believe I have a link for that. I do, that I'll share at the end of the session. As I've mentioned, the delivery model, there's 3 different types of study plans, basically. The 2 most popular, the full-time 12-month study plan, where you're taking 3 courses per term for 3 consecutive terms. So because we're going to be opening up the application for September 2024 come January 15th, the first term will be the fall term, the second term will be the winter term, and the third term will be the summer of 2025. So you will be completing the program just in August 2025. Part-time study plans are available. 24-month, like I said, is the most popular. So for example, starting off in September 2024 will be your first term, then January 2025 will be term 2, summer 2025, term 3, and then you just follow it fall 2025 for term 4, winter 2026 for term 5, and you'll be completing the program at the end of August 2026. The 36-month study plan will take you 3 years, so you'll be completing the program in 2027. But for the part-time 36-month, you're only taking 1 course per term for 9 consecutive terms. So another thing that you should really focus in on at this point, and it kind of references back to the idea of treating this program like a full-time job. The only difference in the part-time and full-time study plan is the amount of courses that you're taking per term. Everything else within the course, the same assignments, readings, requirements, are there for full-time and part-time students. There's no difference in the workload within the course for any of our students. Like I said, the only difference is the number of courses. So a part-time 24-month student coming in this fall will complete 2 courses rather than 3, the equivalent of their full-time colleagues. But full-time students will complete the program quicker. This is a fun little slide that I like to utilize when which kind of depicts the incoming cohort that we have for this January and just where people are coming from. We are an extremely diverse program. We love the diversity that we get, and we reach not only across Canada, as you can see from the chart here, but also internationally as well. We bring in both domestic and international students. There's not a requirement for any citizenship when it comes to our program within Canada. That's a requirement. And the CICC also doesn't require individuals to have Canadian citizenship or permanent residency to write the entry to practice exam. So we are global and we welcome students from all over. And we really do encourage that if you are an international student, that you are able to attend the program in the Eastern Standard Time Zone. So just keep that in mind. All right, so the program overview is complete. Let's go ahead and start looking into our transcripts and ELPT requirements. So each of these are an admission requirement. Transcripts are required from everybody. ELPTs are only required from a certain number of applicants, and it's going to depend on if you meet our exemptions or not. But let's kick off with something that everybody needs to focus on, and that's transcripts. So the number 1 admission criteria that I want to review here with everybody is that applicants to our program, because we are a graduate level program, must come with an undergraduate degree with a B average. So We get a lot of questions from people asking if we can help them with the admission review process to see if they qualify. We don't provide pre-assessments. We don't review transcripts to say, yes, you're okay, or no, you're not. A considerable number of institutions across the globe are accredited to be degree issuing institutions, and we have means to review that. And so do you at this point. It would be recommended that to seek out resources to better assist you with understanding your degree as well as your GPA. We also don't provide any pre-assessments on GPA calculations. We have our methods to provide reviews on completed applications with official transcripts in place, but we can't do anything ahead of time. So what we encourage you to do is to think about your studies in your undergrad. So this is any undergraduate studies all combined together. So if you completed just one undergrad in one location, maybe you completed both a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Education, those would be combined together. And even perhaps if you did an undergrad and then some upgrading at the undergraduate level, we would also take those into consideration for an overall GPA. So think about your studies, see how you did, try to calculate a GPA from all of your undergraduate studies, and try to compare it against the Queen's GPA scale. Queen's utilizes a 4.3 GPA scale, with a B average being a 3.0 on that 4.3 scale. On a 4.0 scale, it roughly breaks down to about a 2.8. But again, it's why we encourage you to think about the requirements and think about how you did. Really be honest with yourself about your studies and consider how well you did grade-wise. Did you achieve straight A's? You're probably going to be pretty fine with the Queen's GPA conversion. If you didn't do so well, if you maybe had a few failures, had a rough stretch of a few terms, maybe you had some just overall low marks at maybe the B- or C, or maybe even lower than that, you're really going to have to think honestly about your ability to apply for this program and utilizing the access pathway where necessary. So access pathway applicants are considered based on their professional experience as well as a pairing of their undergraduate degrees or studies. And if you do think that you need access pathway consideration, I encourage you to register for tomorrow's session where I go a little bit more in depth on the access pathway. All of this information you can find on our website, so you can start researching it now, and I'll provide the link at the end of the session. Because this is such a tricky area to determine on your own, while we say that you need to start thinking about your GPA and calculating it against the Queen's GPA, of course, that means there's no guarantees to set up a firm confirmation of your enrollment eligibility. You can have a better sense of how well you should be doing, but again, it's going to be it's the only way we're going to be able to really provide a fulsome assessment is with a completed application and all of your transcripts in place. So really get yourself prepared as best as you can, and just know that we're going to do a fulsome assessment once we have your application in the system. And this is where I tell people to declare everything that they've done in their post-secondary study. So while we specifically talked about the undergraduate component of it, which is the number one component, any bachelor's degree studies, you also need to declare any additional post-secondary studies that you've completed or attempted. So that involves graduate studies, master's programs, MBAs, PhDs, graduate diploma programs, college level programs, 2 or 3 year diploma programs, post-grad diplomas, or certificate programs. If you attended a CEGEP in Quebec, we need to see that transcript. And we also need to see transcripts from programs that you maybe completed at other institutions during your undergrad. So, for example, you may have conducted some letter of permission studies. So you attended another institution for a term or for an individual course, and you received credit from that program. Perhaps you conducted a study abroad or exchange program where your transcript does not note the grades that you received in that exchange program. We'll need to see both your home institution and the exchange program institution transcript. And any non-degree studies. So like I talked about, some upgrading. Maybe you attended an interest student program. Queen's Arts and Science Online has an interest student program, and maybe you just attended 1 or 2 courses to keep your toe in the waters of undergraduate studies. We would need to see those transcripts in order to provide a fulsome, complete assessment of your entire post-secondary career. So that's why we start these sessions early. This is the opportunity for you to start gathering PDF copies of these transcripts, and I'm going to provide you with some really great examples of what you should be providing with your application. A rule of thumb when it comes to what you should be or should not be submitting: if you received grades and credit from a post-secondary institution, document it and have the transcript available. So if you just attended something for no program credit, it might not necessarily be be relevant, but you may want to provide that as well. But anything that you've you achieved a grade or received a credit for, you should be including that transcript with your application. And again, you want to upload all of your transcripts with your application in English PDF format. This is a great example as to what we're looking for. We need to see a lot of information from all of your post-secondary studies so that we can provide an assessment on your application. Specifically, we'd like to see official transcripts, like this one here is labeled as an official transcript. It has some sort of seal or insignia from your institution. Perhaps somebody has signed off on this document, but the key information is here. This is a breakdown of someone who attended 8 terms, so 4 full years of an undergraduate degree. And that section there that I've circled, it depicts the courses this individual took, the credit for each of those courses, and the grades achieved. We know that a lot of international institutions don't quite follow this the same example. So some may have maybe a full page of each term broken down. Perhaps you have a page per term, and if you completed a 4-year degree, you have 8 individual pages for your transcript. That's fine, provided that you send us all 8 pages of that transcript, or 6 pages for a 3-year degree, or however many pages that you have. Make sure, though, that it highlights the courses you've taken, the credits provided for each of those courses, and the grades achieved. It's the only way we're going to be able to provide an assessment on any of your studies. The example on the right-hand side there is a reverse side of a traditional sort of North American transcript, which provides breakdowns of the GPA legend. Maybe it has some specific lettering that denotes course credit or not for course credit, repeats or retakes. If you have something like that with your application or with your transcript, submit 1 copy of that with your application. It would be hugely helpful, as well as providing a copy of your degree certificate. Many transcripts highlight when you completed your program and when your degree was conferred, but many don't. And the only way that we can determine if you actually completed the program is by seeing a degree or diploma certificate that specifically states the program you completed, your name, as well as the date that this degree or diploma was conferred. Provide that with your application in English PDF format. There's lots of different ways to do this. You can scan copies of your own documents, or you can achieve these or acquire these PDF copies directly from your institution. There are some ways to not provide these documents, though. The example on the left is a printout of somebody's transcript directly from their home institution's website. This is not going to be utilized in the admission review process. It's unofficial, and it doesn't depict all the information that we require. If you are trying to access something like this, go back to your home institution and just request a PDF copy of your transcript. Then you can upload that with your application, and it's a much better situation than the example on the left. The example on the right is an unofficial copy of your transcript. Unofficial copies are not accepted for the admissions process. They may be utilized in very rare cases, but the ideal situation is that you're reaching out to your previous post-secondary institution and acquiring official copies in either electronic or physical versions in order to provide them to us for the admissions review process. Another really good example of something that is not accepted is a photograph of a transcript very similar to this. Photographs tend to be very blurry. Documents can sometimes be very large, so a lot of the information, which can be quite small, is lost in a photo. If you have a copy of your own transcript, go get it scanned or scan it via a scanner that you may own. Lots of office stores have the opportunity to scan documents for a very, very low price, like cents on the dollar. Or perhaps your place of business will allow you to scan an official copy of your document. Get the scans done in black and white. Don't pay for color. Color on a PDF file increases the file size, which may cause issues with the upload. Black and white is preferred. And then a black and white scan means that we'll be able to legibly assess your document. We've received photos in the past. They've been quite blurry. It just doesn't work out for us in the admissions review process. One of the other things that we flag here when it comes to submission of documents is that the School of Graduate Studies and Postdoctoral Affairs, they are our partners in this process. They manage the application system. They do not accept WES or third-party documents in place of transcripts. So let's start bringing in some examples here. So for example, if we have an applicant who studied at Wuhan University, fine institution in China, but they immigrated to Canada and they had their transcripts assessed by WES. This individual in this example cannot upload the WES document in place of transcripts. They have to provide us with the original transcript, an electronic version, maybe one that they possess, or they have to have that institution submit documents on their behalf directly to the SGSPA office via email, fax, or physical mail. You can include these documents in addition to the official documents, official transcripts, because they will support your application and assist us with our admission review, but they can't be solely what you utilize for the process. So make sure that if you have these documents, you are including them alongside the official transcripts. Have basically both side by side. The official document should be first, followed by the WES document. So prepare yourself now, start reaching out to your institutions and acquiring these documents. International transcripts are a significant focus for our applicants. We have a very high interest from individuals who completed post-secondary institution in countries that aren't easily accessible, such as Canadian institutions or US institutions. We know that there are parameters in certain countries where physical documents are the only way that they're provided to applicants. And we know that there's processes where individuals need to access family or friends to go and physically stand in a line to acquire these documents that would then be sent over to them to be utilized in this process. It's a long, arduous process, and we completely acknowledge that, but it is something that you can begin now if you're interested in this program. Start working on acquiring transcripts. Obviously, the number one thing would be to have the transcript submitted on your behalf once you apply directly to the SGSPA office, and I'll provide details as to what their contact information is and how you can deliver things via email, fax, or physical mail. But if things can only come to you, that's okay as well, provided that they remain sealed and signed by that institution. So for example, let's bring in another one here. If you are from a university in India, and the only way that they're going to provide a document is if somebody comes and physically picks it up. If you're able to get somebody to pick it up for you, great. If they ship it to you, great. If you receive it, fantastic. Have it remain sealed and then deliver it to the SGSPA office via physical mail. But please note, any official documents that are sent physically to Queen's University becomes the property of Queen's University. So this will no longer be returned, and we'll be utilizing it and placing it on your student file and utilized in our assessment. And of course, because there's no guarantees for admission, that means that it will become our property, and there may not be an option for you to receive it back. But start thinking about this process now, because we need to see everything. It's going to be extremely important when it comes to the admissions process. So when it comes to the application process, you can start applying for our program for September 2024, starting in January 15th. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to have your documents ready to go by January 15th or by the day that you apply. We understand that people may just be eager to get their application in and want to submit documents at a later date. Or maybe you're starting this transcript acquirement now, but it's going to take several months to actually have the documents be received by either the SGSPA office or by yourself. You can apply for our program and have documents submitted by the document deadline of May 15th. If you receive a PDF copy of a transcript, you can log back into your application once it's submitted and paid for, and you can upload PDF copies of those transcripts for our admissions review. Also, if you have official documents sent in on your behalf, they will be marked as received by the SGSPA office and mark it off of your application. So this is why we encourage you that you always log into your application within the SGSPA application system to check the status of your documents. Whatever you highlight on your application is going to be what we require, and we will conduct our review. And if there's any transfer credit or any letter of permission studies, any additional studies that you've done in addition to what you submit, we'll also request those transcripts. So just prepare yourself now to make sure that you're able to provide transcripts at least by the document deadline of May 15th. That's the last date we'll accept any documents, especially transcripts. So you do have some time to get this ball rolling now. There should be no excuse for anybody here who applies for the upcoming September 2024 term who were unable to acquire the official transcripts for the admissions process. A few tips in regards to kind of a wrap up of the transcript section here. PDF copies are going to be the easiest way to submit documents with your application. Black and white preferred, just to keep the file size down. And make sure you're including every page and every year. We always have an instance every single admission cycle where several people provide transcripts, and it's page 4 of 8, page 5 of 8, page 6 of 8. Where are the other pages? We need to see everything that's gone into your post-secondary studies, so make sure you provide that. Also, provide a copy of your degree or diploma certificate. That's also going to be extremely important for the admission review process. If necessary, you'll have to have your post-secondary institutions provide documents on your behalf directly to SGSPA via email, fax, or physical mail. If you do this, this will alleviate a step later on if you're offered admission. Every student who is entering the program, who's been made an offer of admission and accepts it, then must have official documents submitted to the SGSPA office anyway. So it will alleviate that step later on. So think about having official documents submitted, ideally in electronic format via email or fax, directly to the SGSPA office for the admissions process. The more documents we have, the better, but make sure your official documents are your primary focus. WES and third-party assessments can also be included, but not in place of official documents. And submit all transcripts. I can't stress this enough. We need to see everything that you've done. This isn't a program where we only review your most recent credentials, such as a master's or a PhD program. We also don't review some years of your undergrad. We review everything. So make sure you submit all post-secondary transcripts. The more you submit up front, the less likely it is that we'll have to come back to you and identify or locate additional studies. And this also includes those kind of tangent studies that you do during your undergrad, a letter of permission, an exchange program. Maybe you started at a different institution. Let's bring in another example. So say that individual who studied at a university in India, maybe they started there. They did their first 2 years at the University of the Punjab. And then they decided to go to Canada and study at Memorial University. Fantastic move. It's a lovely institution. Both of those institutions are. And say that individual was going to get a lot of transfer credit at their Memorial program from their study in India. That's great, but we need to see both transcripts, the transcript from India and the transcript from Memorial University. The same goes for 3 places of study, 4 places of study, 5 places of study. We've seen up to 6 or 7 transcripts have to be all gathered for one undergraduate degree because that individual has just studied at multiple different locations. We know people move. We know people go to different places and experience studying at those institutions. That's great. We support it. We just need to see the documents for it. So start gathering everything together. If your transcript highlights transfer credit, make sure you include where those transfer credits came from, the entire transcript. So that concludes the transcript portion. Again, save questions until we get to the Q&A. I'm sure there's lots out there. We will open the Q&A very shortly, but let's go through the next big thing here, ELPT scores. So some applicants, many applicants, in fact, will have to submit an English language proficiency test score or ELPT score for the review process. There are very specific requirements when it comes to the ELPTs. There's some general universal requirements. They all have to be completed within 2 years from the month of your application. So if you apply in January 2024 for the upcoming September intake, we can't accept an ELPT that's older than January 2022. Also, you need to submit your ELPT score directly to SGSPA. Don't email them to our office. We'll only review them because SGSPA has staff who are experts in this, and they review if it's an official document. So there needs to be verification in order to get to our office. We'll provide those details within the SGSPA link on how you provide those ELPTs. We have 4 distinct ELPTs that we accept for the program. The first one is KLCE. So for Kale, there are 2 options. You can do a test center version of it or a home version, which is done online. Both of those are acceptable. And the score required for the KLCE is an overall 70 with no category at below 70. Everything has to be at 70 or above. We also accept IELTS Academic, not IELTS General, IELTS Academic. Again, the test center and the home version are both accepted, and you need to have an overall 7.0, and no category can be below 7.0 to be accepted. TOEFL IBT is the internet-based test that TOEFL offers. They do have a test center and a home version. We accept both. The overall score required is a 101 minimum. And for categories, we have a little bit of a different structure here. All categories need to be at 25 out of 30, but listening needs to be at a 26 out of 30. So there's a little bit of a discrepancy between the 4 categories there. 3 are at 25 out of 30, with listening needing to be at 26. So keep that in mind. The final test, we don't see this one at all, really. It's a very different test. It's the TOEFL PBT. It's only available in certain areas, and the overall score required there is 607. You're going to primarily look at the other 3 if you need to provide an ELPT. We do not accept certain tests that we know are extremely popular, both in the immigration process as well as the education process. We don't accept CELPIP, IELTS General, CLB, Pearson, Duolingo, or any other test that's not the ones that we've already listed. Do not request consideration for those tests. We will not grant that. We only will review KLCE, IELTS Academic, and the 2 TOEFL tests that I've listed. We also will not accept scores that are older than 24 months, as I've already mentioned. Anything beyond January 2022 at this point will not be reviewable. So you're going to have to upgrade if you need to provide your ELPT scores. Now, there are exemptions that we offer for a very select few, and I'm going to go through each of those exemptions now. The number 1 exemption that we offer is that if you self-identify as a native English speaker, you will not have to provide an ELPT right away. You may be required to provide, because for any of these exemptions, the admission committee who reviews admission files for decisions may request an ELPT from any applicant, even if you meet all of our exemption criteria for any reason throughout the process. So you may need to provide that, but if you meet one of these exemption criteria, you may not have to provide it. So really keep in mind what the exemption criteria are and review accordingly. So self-identifying as a native English speaker is tricky. There's no hard and fast rule when it comes to, am I a native English speaker or not? Some of the things you can take into consideration is that English is your primary language. It has been your primary language since your adolescence. It's the only language you utilize in a professional and personal setting. You've conducted no studies in an English as a second language program. You haven't had to provide ELPTs for any specific reasons outside of maybe some of the standard ones that everybody has to provide. There's some very kind of set examples you can take into consideration. It's tricky though. If you don't self-identify as a native English speaker, you're going to have to really consider that ELPT requirement. Also not built into this component is consideration for based on citizenship, professional designation, or geographic location. We don't take those into consideration in the exemption process. So if you don't self-identify as a native English speaker, but you're a Canadian citizen, that's still a requirement for you to provide an ELPT, because Canada welcomes individuals into our country who bring their native tongues with them. It's extremely important that those values and the history that you have with that language are still valued for you today. It's really important that you retain your mother tongue and you're able to communicate with family and friends and colleagues, people in your community in the same language. But for our program, English is the primary language of instruction. It's the only language of instruction. And we need you to be successful in our program, as well as being successful when you become an RCIC or move this education into a workplace. And the way that we identify that is through English language proficiency test scores. So prepare yourself. We understand the additional burden that this comes with. I've taken an ELPT myself. It was one of the most stressful experiences I've ever gone through. But you have to prepare, and you can start preparing now. Again, ELPTs are the same as any document. You don't have to submit these up until, the last date that you can submit these is May 15th. I'll word it better. So make sure you're preparing now. You have 6 months to do this. Well, 5 in a little bit now. The other exemption criteria has changed since our last offering of the admission process. Our education exemption is now, if you have completed 4 or more years of consecutive full-time academic study at a university where English is the official language of instruction, you may not have to submit an ELPT score. So consecutive years means back to back to back to back, no breaks, and no changes in your full-time study. So, for example, I know many people who have taken a couple of years of full-time study, maybe dropped it down to part-time for a period of time, maybe even for a single semester, and then came back to full-time study. That's no longer consecutive full-time academic study. Has to be 4 years or more in a row. That can also be between institutions. So if you did a 3-year degree and then immediately followed it with a 1-year master's, that's acceptable, so long as there's no break between your studies, between your undergrad and your graduate. The way that this is going to be proven is by providing documents, official transcripts, as well as maybe letters from your institution. We need to identify that the medium of English was conducted in your institution, either via your transcript or a letter from your institution. It has to be all full-time, and you need to demonstrate that all of your studies were full-time. And again, we reserve that right that even if you meet this criteria, we could still request an ELPT if the admission committee desires. The final criteria is applicable to our September intake, so keep this one in mind. It is, if you are interested in completing our English for Academic Purposes program, ESLA 150, at the Queen's School of English. So maybe you identify that your English proficiency needs some support. We have a great program available for that. It's only available for September applicants. ESLA 150 takes place during the September term. And then you have to achieve an A grade in order to begin your GDIP ICL studies in the following January. So individuals who are interested in this select their interest in attending the ESLA 150 program on their application. You provide all admission documents, and you then get considered for a conditional offer of admission. The condition is that you attend ESLA 150 and complete the A grade. If you don't, you'll then be removed from the applicant pool and you'll have to apply for a future term. You can't select this on your application and then later submit an ELPT score. Select one pathway or the other. The ESLA 150 program's an intensive online program. It is roughly about $5,800 in tuition. It's not for everyone. I encourage you to review our website for more information. If you completed an equivalent program from another Canadian university, so if you did another English for Academic Purpose program and you can provide the course descriptions and your transcript, we may consider that in place of your attendance at ESLA 150. This is a very rare example, but we could take that into consideration. So some tips on this. I'm going to really encourage you to be honest with yourself about this process. We need you to be English language proficient to be successful in our program. And because we are the only point in which you have to demonstrate English language proficiency, we're really stringent with the requirements. Do not request additional exemptions outside of what I've just detailed. We do not take exemptions based on your professional designation or experience, your citizenship, or your geographic location. Those just will not be factored in. There's no way we can provide English language proficiency equivalencies based on those requirements. And proof that you meet the education exemption is required. As well, for completion of any EAP courses outside of the Queen's ESLA 150 program, we need proof. All right, so that brings us to kind of the overview of our next admission cycle. So as I've stated, the admission cycle will begin for September 2024 on January 15th. We accept both full and part-time applications for admission consideration for September intakes. Make sure you review our website. If you've applied for our program in the past, things have changed. We've updated our ELPT criteria, exemption criteria, as I've outlined here. We have a new personal statement of interest question on the application. We've also updated our AI generation statement. We will not review applications that utilize or are flagged as utilizing AI generation. It's very easy for us to detect. We will just flat out reject an application if that's the case. Do not utilize AI generation for your personal statement of interest statement. Utilize your own voice, because that is the opportunity for you to tell us about you. We've also changed some of the requirements to the academic reference. We'll be talking about references in tomorrow's session, as well as future admission webinars before we open up the application. The application will close on April 1st. So this is where things get a little bit tricky with dates. The application remains open from January 15th to April 1st. You apply during that period of time. The document requirement is May 15th. So that means if you've applied during the application period, you can submit documents at a later date. You cannot submit your application after April 1st. You apply via the SGSPA application system for standard full-time and part-time, as well as our access pathway consideration. The application fee is non-refundable and non-transferable. You are only applying for one admission cycle, so prepare yourself for the September 2024 intake. Decisions for this application cycle are sent out in late June, early July. It's a long process. We have a lot of interest in our program. It's a very competitive application. And we also do offer the intra-student pathway, which is not exactly a viable pathway for those who are interested in completing the full program. It's more used for single course interest enrollment. More information about the intra-student progression is available on our website. Just some general tips before I open up the Q&A box here. Review everything before you submit your application. Be sure to check your name, especially your email address, that it's correct, spelt correctly. We've had people who haven't received documents back from us because of issues with the spelling of their email address. Be honest in your submissions. Submit everything. Have your documents ready to go. And just make sure that you are checking your email address and your application in the system regularly. The number one reason we do not review applications is because there's a missing document. And typically that missing document are references. References are sent on your behalf, which means it's very out of your control. You submit your reference contact information. If your references don't get back to us, we can't review your application. So again, that's why we stress here, the application fee is non-refundable, and make sure you track your application in the system. All right, I'm going to go ahead and open up the Q&A box, but what I'm going to ask you to do when it comes to this is to not provide any personal information. Do not spam your question over and over. We will be reviewing questions as best as we can. And just make sure that that you are providing questions that are relevant to the topic at hand. We won't be answering questions that are more, I have this, or I meet this. It will be, we can't provide that personalized information. We're looking at more general information. All right, we're seeing questions come in. That's great. For questions, what you can do is you can actually upvote other people's questions by clicking the thumbs up. I will talk about responses to questions that are most popular. So go ahead and throw a thumbs up if you see something that you would want answered within the Q&A box. All right, the number one thing I'm already seeing right here is, can we submit 2 IELTS results if we do not score in one test? No, we do not super score. We do not combine scores together. So let's bring in another example. Say an applicant has an overall 7.5 in their IELTS academic, but their writing score is at a 6. That happens. You will be flagged. We're actually going to contact individuals who don't who submit ELPTs that don't meet our requirement. And we're going to let you know of that requirement. IELTS has a new thing right now where you can do what's called a 1-skill retake. It's available for those who take I believe it's the online version or the test center version, one of the two. Contact IELTS for more information about that. You can then take a less expensive quiz to upgrade that one individual skill point. That's fine. We will accept that, but we will not take 2 separate tests and combine them together. So if that's the case for you right now, start working on this right now. All right. Very popular. Can we buy books and study materials now? And where can we get them from? No, I'm not going to recommend anybody buying any materials at this stage. We have just gone through the admissions process for the January intake, and the books have changed even since the fall intake. I don't want people buying materials that will be irrelevant moving into the September 2024 intake. Textbooks are always changing. There's always a new edition. You can't start working on that now. The focus that we really need you to have is to look at the admission process. Admission is the #1 priority before you start thinking about the program coursework itself. So while I appreciate the interest, the key is to focus in on getting into the program first before buying program materials. Let's see. Are there any seat caps for the number of students who can enroll? We don't have any explicit numbers to provide. We do inform individuals that our January intake is smaller than our September intake. And for January, we only accept full-time students, whereas for September, we accept both full-time and part-time. I can tell you, we review every single application that is complete. That means thousands of applications every year are reviewed by myself and my staff, and we do our best to provide everybody with a fulsome assessment, which is why we ask you to provide us with all of the documents. All right, let's see. I've done a Bachelor of Technology degree, 4 years without a gap, all in English language, but I have done it back home in India. But it was complete English language. My question is, sorry, it's changed. Am I exempt? It looks like people are taking the exact same question and copying it. Please don't do that. Please only submit your question, and only once. In this instance, so I'm going to kind of provide a general example. So the question is, perhaps. We will review your application. Your application will go into the pre-assessment process without the need for an ELPT to be submitted, because you can state that you meet the education exemption. We will then review, and we will make a request for an ELPT if we feel that it is necessary. It's why we want you to submit all of your information, be as honest as you can, and we will review. And if you need to work on an ELPT now in the meantime, I'd encourage you to do so. Think about it. There's no guarantees that if you meet the application or the exemption criteria that you will be exempt. We receive lots of applications where we can indicate that the English proficiency is not as strong as we would want it. and we request an ELPT score. So perhaps, but I would say prepare just in case. Is this session recorded? Will it be sent to all participants? This session is recorded. I believe something will be sent out via the mailing list or via our social media account on Facebook. Just watch those venues for more information. Do you require official hard copies of transcripts and degrees from universities? So yes, that is a requirement for all incoming students. For the application process, if you don't have your own copies to upload in English PDF format, you will have to have official documents sent to the School of Graduate Studies and Postdoctoral Affairs on your behalf. How many students would intakes? We don't provide numbers about students. It varies from term to term. After uploading my transcript and degree that I have on SGSPA, then I will contact my university to send. So, no, that's not quite correct. So if you've already uploaded your documents within the SGSPA application, you then don't need to have official documents sent in by your school unless your documents are flagged as unacceptable. So here's the process. So say, for example, an individual who has studied at the University of Melbourne, and at York University, let's just say 2 institutions. They have PDF copies of their documents. They submit them with their application. They submit their application, pay the fee, and they go ahead and put everything through. The SGSPA office will receive that application. There is a specific admission and registration assistant in charge of your application. They'll review your transcripts first. If they decide that everything's good to go, they will then move it into a status that will flag with us, and we'll be able to do our pre-assessment. If they review your documents and something isn't quite right, they will mark the document as unaccepted or unacceptable. You will be able to see that within the document section of the application, and you'll be able to then go back to the institution, and at that point, you'll be able to get them to submit a transcript on your behalf, or you'll be able to resubmit a better document that meets the requirement, uploading it with your application. So that's why we say it's really important to monitor transcripts and make sure that everything is deemed as accepted. The same goes for references. Once a reference is received by the office, they will mark it as received. If something's not received, that's a flag for you to go back to your referee and say, why haven't you submitted this on my behalf? Can you please do so? The other part is SGSPA portal issue. So I would, that question, no, SGSPA does not issue anything directly to your institutions. They do it to your references. So they send out an email to your 2 references that you list in your application's email address to request documents on your behalf. You need to provide all of your documents. All right, I'm going to include, as we answer questions here, the links that I promised. So details about our website, our admissions website, specifically information about tuition and financing and our RBC line of credit. We have our mailing list information. You can sign up there. And I also provided a link to the School of Graduate Studies and Postdoctoral Affairs office. I encourage you to look at step 2 in their drop-down menu, compile documentation, learn more about the official document requirement there. And then I've provided the CICC's website. A question here, something mandatory, the WES process. WES is not mandatory for our program. We don't accept WES documents in place of transcripts. We can accept WES documents in support of your official transcript. Somebody's asking, I have 5 years of baking experience back home in India and also have 4 years of experience in Canada in various fields. Will this consider for application? So I believe you're more referencing the professional experience requirement, which is under the access pathway. The access pathway, and I'll just mention it here, is a pathway for those who don't quite meet the academic admission criteria, which is a completed bachelor's degree with a B average. Maybe you did not complete your degree. Maybe you attended some post-secondary or some university studies. Maybe you don't have the B average. Maybe you just received a B minus. You had a struggle in your first year, say. If that's the case and you want to apply for our program, you apply via the access pathway. You have to provide a statement as to why you could not meet the academic criteria. What barriers did you face during your undergraduate studies? And then you have to provide your resume. Your resume or CV has to be up to date, complete, and it needs to depict a minimum of 5 years of relevant professional experience. Relevant professional experience denotes experience in the fields of law or immigration and citizenship. So in this case, baking experience, I believe you might have indicated banking experience. That's not going to be relevant experience in this case. The 4 years of experience in Canada in various fields is very vague. We can't provide any details on your personal situation here, but if it's not law or immigration and citizenship, it will not be reviewed for the access pathway consideration. For anybody who's in that situation, the encouragement is to consider options to improve your overall undergraduate GPA, either through another degree or non-degree studies, but for credit at an accredited university. So for example, the Queen's Arts and Science Online is a great program. The Queen's Certificate in Law program is a great program to take 4 undergraduate courses in a law field online on a part-time basis. And those courses would apply towards your cumulative GPA or CGPA at the undergraduate level. It's not a direct pathway into our program, but it would help. Other studies, Athabasca University is a great example of an online university that issues undergraduate credit. You're going to have to do some additional coursework in order to increase and improve your overall GPA. Question here. How many hours for each day for virtual courses? Is attendance important, or do we just study alone by ourselves? Excellent question. Thank you very much. So there's 2 different components to that question. The online live component tutorials are mandatory and you need to attend those 2 hours per week, every week per course. So for example, for a full-time student coming in this September, for the first 6 weeks, you'll take 3 hours of tutorials, a 2-hour tutorial on either Thursdays or Saturdays, and a 1-hour tutorial on Tuesdays for 6 weeks. Once you complete that ICL 810 course, you go into ICL 820 and 830 at the same time. Then you will take 2 hours of tutorials per week per course, which means you'll be taking 4 hours of tutorials per week. Those are a requirement. Make sure that you attend those. The rest of the studies are done on your own time. You do your readings, your assignments, your online interactions outside of a classroom setting. So, for example, you are given assignments for a week. You have to achieve this, and within OnQ it says the due date is a week from the day that it's posted. You do your readings, you complete your quiz or your online assignment, you submit it, and then that's what you're doing on your own time. Is your college the only one in Canada which is authorized by IRCC to qualify for RCIC pathway? So our IRCC is not the regulating body. IRCC is the group within the government of Canada that handles immigration. So our IRCC is a separate entity from the CICC, which is the College of Immigration and Citizenship Consultants. They are the governing body over the RCIC designation and entire profession. And yes, we are the only English language institution that can offer the education to allow people to be eligible to write the entry to practice exam to become an RCIC. The French language program is with our partner institution at the University de Montreal. A great institution. If you're looking for French language study, I encourage you to contact them. I've already answered that question, so I'll just remove it. If the transcript doesn't show instruction mode of program in English, what documents we need to submit? So that document, that's a great question. The document you were required is some form of letter confirming that during your time of study, your program was all provided in the medium of English. So you would contact your institution and make sure that they are able to provide that letter directly to you, and you can upload that with your application. All right. Can this course be done while employed full-time at work? So excellent question. A part-time student can absolutely still remain full-time employed. However, because you need to really consider this program as a full-time job, the requirements are quite considerable. You may want to reduce your professional requirements down or take a leave for a period of time. Full-time students cannot be employed full-time due to regulations by the institution, by Queen's University, as well as the program itself. So you have to reduce your hours down to part-time hours or take a leave from your employment. I have a student copy of all my documents, but both original ones. I also have IQAS assessment certificates. Is this acceptable? I mean, it's hard for us to say. It will be, it depends answer to that question. Upload everything you have. The IQAS document alone will not be sufficient because that's a third-party assessment. So do what you can to provide everything that you have for the admissions process. As I mentioned, the more documents you have, the better. We are going to stick around and answer as many questions as we can. We know we've come to time here, but I have some additional series of workshops or webinars. I have one tomorrow specific on the ELPT. Today was ELPTs. Sorry, that's my mistake. References will be tomorrow now. And also, I'll be doing a session on December 13th, just a general overview session, and then 2 in early or in mid-January, right before the application opens. So make sure you attend those to learn more. You can also find us online, immigrationdiploma.ca, and you can also follow us on Facebook. Oh, I'm sorry. I believe there is an error in the document deadline. It's May 1st, not May 15th. That's my mistake. I just misspoke. All right, let's see what else we have. We'll try to endeavor to answer as many questions as we can. We'll take a few more minutes. Must the transcript be written in English? Ideally, your transcript is in English for us in the office. If you're able to get the transcript translated by your institution, please send a translated copy. French transcripts may be accepted, but it'll depend on the expertise of the individuals in SGSPA. I got first division in my bachelor's and master's degree. So divisions, levels, classifications are very tricky. We do a fulsome assessment. What we typically say is that individuals at a second division, upper level or higher, typically are pretty safe in the B average, though you never know what the situation will be when we conduct our full assessment. Student copies of transcripts will be reviewable in PDF format for the admissions process. Again, that's why we encourage you to get them properly scanned. No photos of them, and no downloadable copies or print-offs of your student file within your institution's website. Let's see. If a PhD is not completed and is not coursework, then what happens? There's no paperwork for that evaluation other than the registration letter. I would say in any case of a program that wasn't complete, get some sort of verification from the institution as to what your status is with the program, active or inactive. If you've removed yourself from the program, any supporting documentation in that case is going to be fine. We have dealt with that problem in the past. Somebody's asking about 4 years consecutive. So study gaps are a break in consecutive. Typically, there is a period of time, say it follows the standard academic year where people take the summer off. The summer off is fine because you're going to then be beginning your studies next fall or the following fall. If you, for example, let's say a person goes to York University and does a 3-year program, and say they complete the program in 2022. So they finish it in April of 2022. They get their degree conferred. Fantastic. If they start their next studies in September of 2022, that's not a break in the consecutive years. If they wait until September 2023, that's a break in studies. That's not consecutive anymore. Hopefully that's answered that question. Somebody's asking about study permits. Our program does not require study permits. It does not require work permits or any specific visas. You are not traveling to Kingston to participate in our program. Also, we're not PGWP eligible. So there's no requirement for study permit for our program, and we don't assist with this process. So that's why it's not a factor, and it's why we're able to bring in international students into our program, because that's not a requirement. How to provide translation of transcripts since my credentials were not issued in English and transcripts must be sent. So Translations, a translator can send copies of transcripts directly to SGSPA. I would contact them, sgspa.reception@queensu.ca, with any questions regarding translations of transcripts that either can't be issued from the institution or will be issued by you directly. IELTS results. So anybody who needs to submit an ELPT should contact the School of Graduate Studies and Postdoctoral Affairs. I'm just going to open up their link here, and I will find the information, and hopefully I'll be able to share it on my screen. All right, let's just review. Yes, there is a step 4, provide English language test results if applicable. There's a breakdown about how to submit scores. They have information here. So you can see this is the how to apply site for the School of Graduate Studies and Postdoctoral Affairs. And there's all the information in this drop-down menu here, step 4, and it provides how you upload them. Ignore the score requirements. The School of Graduate Studies in general has different requirements than our program, but it has information on how to upload TOEFL and CALE, as well as IELTS. So utilize that link. I will put the link again in the chat. Let me just reopen it here. Follow the SGSPA link. If you started as an interest student, can you later convert it to a part-time program? Technically, yes. We admit very, very few interest students in general. It's not a pathway for anybody who's really interested in completing the program. My encouragement would be to apply via the part-time standard application via the SGSPA app. The admission criteria are exactly the same. How competitive is the program? Approximately how many students will be accepted as full-time? Good question. We don't provide that information. The first part of that question is important, though. We're a very competitive program. We receive a considerable amount of interest for our program every single term, and every single admission cycle is unique. I'm sure there are individuals who have applied to our program previously here in this webinar today. Your application may be eligible at a later time because the admission criteria may adjust, or the standard of applicant may adjust. It varies from year to year, term to term, but it is very competitive, and it's only getting more and more competitive. So that's why we encourage everybody to do what they can in regards to what they can issue for the admissions process. I've completed bachelor's degrees overseas, currently in Canada. Will be completing a 1-year post-graduate program at Sheridan. So I can't provide any specific details as to if you meet the exemption criteria. Review our website. A Sheridan College program is not a university program, so it wouldn't factor into the education exemption. So it sounds like you might have to provide an ELPT score. International transcripts must be sent directly from the institutions. What if I have the transcripts with official seals? So no, official transcripts are only a requirement if you can't upload documents on your own behalf with your application. And official documents will be a requirement for anybody who accepts an offer of admission. But again, if you possess copies sealed and signed, then you can submit them directly to the SGSPA office on your behalf. So it's not an absolute requirement. It's only if you can access transcripts in PDF format for the application. Does submitting application and all docs earlier have an advantage or get a sooner offer than June? Excellent question. No one gets an early offer. We do all of our offers at the same time. It will assist us in the process of reviewing your application and then it'll help you, because if we review your application and deem that you're missing something, you'll have more time to get it to us. So applying early is always better, but you can wait right up until the end if you have everything together. Everybody receives the same decision time frame as every applicant. What's the usual class timing for the full-time fall session? I'm working full-time, wondering if I can continue working full-time. So first of all, you can't be a full-time student and be employed full-time. So that should answer that question. And the class schedule, the only requirement to be live in person, virtually, of course, are for those tutorials, and they occur either on weeknight evenings or weekends midday. So you will have time in the Eastern Standard Time Zone to attend outside of the standard office hours. But again, can't be employed full-time and be enrolled full-time. For ELPT score exemption, what is considered full-time studies? Full-time studies, it varies from institution to institution. At Queen's, I believe it's a minimum of 3 courses per term. At some institutions, it's based on course credit. It may be based on the number of courses. There might be a variety of different reasons. It's why we encourage you to provide information whether you were a full-time student or not. So we will be doing research into that. But it's easy enough to provide a letter verifying that you were a full-time student throughout all of your studies. If it changed midway through, you have to identify that as well. All right. I got my BA in Iran, and I have my original degree and transcript, plus I had it assessed by Wes. Also got my master's in Canada. Yes, you can absolutely submit those documents. Those documents would be great in PDF format for the application process. Thank you. Okay, NCA, is there any exemption to do this course? We don't know what NCA is. There are very, very few opportunities to gain transfer credits or exemptions in our program. You can always request if you become a student in our program, but typically we're only transferring courses between us and the University of Montreal. Other courses typically don't qualify for transfer credit. We're just going to finish up the final questions here. We've only got 9. Thank you to everybody who attended today. We really appreciate it. We will have another session. I'm going to cover references tomorrow. I apologize for the confusion in the wording, but references will be covered tomorrow, and as well as the access pathway. And then you'll be able to access a recording of this, I'm sure, sometime very soon. Let's go ahead and continue on with these final questions. If you have to leave us today, that's completely fine. Appreciate your attendance, and hopefully this was informative. It provides you with all the details you need. My key urging here is to start as early as possible. That's the real urging. The application opens January 15th. You still have plenty of time to get documents together, and I appreciate all the reactions. Thank you very much. All right, let's see what else we can cover here before we head out. If we had 3 courses each term during our 4-year consecutive period, does that consider? So good question. Again, it depends on the institution, what they classify as full-time studies. We'll be able to review that, or you can provide details from your institution's website, providing us details about whether it meets the admission criteria. I've done MCA. I don't know what MCA is. That's very specific to that applicant or prospective applicant. We would have to ask you to provide details of information. MCA doesn't exactly sound like it's a program that we would typically consider if it's a degree or a diploma, possibly, but you're going to have to provide more information about that with your application. Do you want industry-specific post-secondary graduate certificate? So no, we accept credentials from all lines of study. We have in our program arts majors, science majors, engineers, nurses, fine arts. Like we know that this program could be coming to you at a time when you've already have a permanent career, maybe even a second career you've already conducted. So it varies, and we accept students from all walks of life, all backgrounds, both professionally and academically. But you have to get transcripts from everything. That's really key. I'm on you're in the immigration assistant program. It's an 8-week course. Is the GPA considered? So that's a short course. 8 weeks typically doesn't meet the credential requirements for like a degree or diploma. That's more of an additional course that you're taking. It's not going to meet the undergraduate requirement. And an undergraduate degree is a 3 or 4 year program. All right, we're almost done. I've done my full-time bachelor's studies in English medium for 4 years. This has been outlined in my transcript. English medium, good. And I have a separate letter issued by my university mentioned that regular full-time studies in English medium. Excellent. Is this accept as an exemption for ELPT? So it could. Again, we would review your application, and if the admission committee deems it necessary, we'll make a request for an ELPT. but you have the credentials that would meet our review, and you wouldn't have to submit it for the admissions process. All right, Jolene is managing the final question there. Thank you very much, Jolene. So I think that pretty much brings us to the conclusion of the session. We'll go ahead and close this out here in a few minutes. But again, just thank you very much. Stay connected with us. Attend any of these future sessions. Again, I've got a couple sessions coming up here. January is going to be really key because the application opens January 15th. I'm doing 2 sessions that week to make sure that everybody's well prepared. And then I'm doing another session, just a general webinar, December 13th. If you want to learn more about references and the access pathway, attend tomorrow. I apologize to anybody who attended here today looking for reference information, just an error in development on my part. We will have reference information. You'll be able to view a video of that at a later point. Hopefully today was very helpful. I'm going to go ahead and close out the session. Thank you very much, and have yourself a great day wherever you are located.